While several Muslims hailed him as a hero and saw in him a symbol of resistance to imperialism, others, notably Iran-backed Hezbollah, which established itself in southern Lebanon, rejected and denounced him. This organization disputes any cooperation with Al-Qaeda. Islamist movements respond differently to Al-Qaeda, depending on whether they are militarized or not. Following the bombings on American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in August 1998, the FBI listed Osama bin Laden, the leader of the Al-Qaeda network, as one of the top 10 most wanted criminals. The U.S. Senate increased the FBI's $25 million reward to $50 million in 2007 in exchange for any information that led to its apprehension. In 2006, the UN created a list that Interpol disseminated, naming groups and individuals associated with Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban, which are the Islamist fundamentalists grouped together in a military, political, and religious organization that ruled Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001 and from 2021. Following 10 years of tracking, the CIA found him in a guarded compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. An American commando from Special Forces raids the compound and murders him. For the benefit of governments or organizations, they gather and analyze sensitive information. They carry out covert operations, infiltration, and other forms of surveillance to obtain information about prospective threats or to their advantage. Because of the often secretive nature of their employment, it calls for extreme discretion and professionalism. They could work covertly or assume different identities. They need a high level of skill, training, and mental toughness for their work, which can be dangerous. Their practice frequently involves emotional deceit and manipulation. Osama bin Laden was a Saudi jihadist born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, on March 10, 1957. Belonging to a Yemeni family that was close to the Saudi royal family, his father established the Bin Laden Construction Group, a construction firm that holds multiple exclusive contracts with the Saudi government. His father died in a plane crash in 1967 at the age of 66. In the cabinet established in May 1958, he served as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's Minister of State as well. His mother, Alia Ghanem, is a native of the Syrian city of Latakia and is an Alawite. An estimate of the family's wealth is $5 billion. The company's success was aided by its closeness to the Saudi royal family. After rising to prominence as one of the world's top construction firms, it diversified and became the Saudi Bin Laden Group, which had a number of implications. Bin Laden Telecommunications, which changed its name to Baud Telecom Company, BTC Networks, in 1999, was one of them. For reasons that are still unclear, Osama bin Laden made his first trip to the West at the age of 13. The following year, he left for 10 weeks of study in the United Kingdom. At Oxford, he would have studied English. From 1974 to 1978, the young man attended King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah to study business and technical studies. During this period, he took lessons from a Palestinian cleric known as the Imam of Jihad, meaning struggle or resistance, Abdallah Azam. Due to the Afghan conflict, the global jihad movement rose to prominence, with this imam having a major influence. In the mid-1970s, Osama bin Laden joined the family group. Studies the key texts of Wahhabism throughout this era. This Sunni branch of Islam, originating in Saudi Arabia, is considered particularly strict and fundamentalist. In addition, it organized and structured the Muslim legal system in Saudi Arabia. Thus, Wahhabism influenced Saudi students. In this context, it is logical that bin Laden also did it. Afghanistan was invaded by Soviet troops on December 27, 1979. Only a few months prior, Ayatollah Khomeini's revolution brought down the Iranian Shah's administration. In the Middle East, Islamism is starting to play a significant geopolitical role. Supported by Saudi Arabia, which sees an opportunity to promote Wahhabism, and Pakistan, which hopes to become the leader of an Islamic international in the future through its inter-services intelligence, a large number of mujahids traveled to Afghanistan to battle the Soviet Union. At that time, Prince Turki bin Faisal Al Saud, also known as Turki Al Faisal, who was the son of the late Saudi King Faisal bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, who ruled from 1964 to 1975, approached Osama bin Laden. Turki al-Faisal was the head of Saudi Arabia's secret services from 1977 to 2001 and the Saudi ambassador to London. Saudi Prince Turki al-Faisal asked bin Laden to organize the sending of volunteers to Afghanistan and to station them along the Pakistani border. When the young man arrives on site, he finds activists very committed and poorly prepared. Enemy is the norm. It has been claimed that bin Laden used a group known as the Service Bureau to arrange for the militants to arrive in Peshawar, a city in northern Pakistan. In addition to ensuring the military and ideological training of fighters, in training camps, mosques, and schools, and the supply of weapons, he would have created a legitimate organization. He would have gradually taken control of families. He would have taken care of widows and been responsible for the religious education of children. Officially, the CIA started providing support to the Mujahideen in 1980, together with French intelligence services, Egypt, Pakistan, and other countries, in order to give the Soviets a holy war. In this way, the modest young man's prestige increases, and he becomes more confident. He would have taken part in a couple of battles himself. The Palestinian Abdallah Azzam, who served as his mentor and companion, was slain in 1989. Then Osama bin Laden found himself in charge of the group. It serves as the headquarters for Al-Qaeda, which quickly turns into a logistics hub for global jihadism. Some Afghan warriors later depart to fight on other fronts, in Chechnya and Yugoslavia. During this 10-year period, bin Laden frequently traveled to Saudi Arabia and reported to Prince Turki al-Faisal. Afghanistan at the time was divided into various factions, with tribal logic taking precedence over intellectual reason. Many Mujahideen feared that foreigners would spread Salafism, another form of Sunnite Islam fundamentalist. This is though a moderate version of Islam is respected in many parts of Afghanistan. In particular, Commander Massoud notably refuses any partnership with bin Laden because he believes that the latter supports the Taliban, with whom he is engaged in the fight against the Soviets, but, ideologically, they are separated. Osama bin Laden then made contact with Ghubuddin Hekmatyar, a local leader of the fundamentalist movement, a politician and military figure, and the former Prime Minister of the Islamic State of Afghanistan. At the time, Pakistan supported Ghubuddin Hekmatyar, wanting to see him run the nation once the Soviet Union left. The Soviets declared their departure from Afghanistan in February 1989. The jihadists resolved to keep fighting until they seized control of Kabul. But in 1990, the United States, which had fulfilled its mission, and Saudi Arabia ceased providing significant financial and logistical support. Following the withdrawal of the Soviet army from Afghanistan, Osama bin Laden returned to Saudi Arabia as a hero. During the Gulf War, 1990 to 1991, he proposed to King Fahd to use his militia to defend the country against a possible invasion by Iraqi troops. King Fahd refuses and prefers the support of the American army, thus opening himself to the accusation by bin Laden according to which he authorized the infidels to defile the sacred soil of Saudi Arabia, which will affect, increasingly, his relationship with the royal family, until the Saudi Interior Ministry seized his passport during the winter of 1990 to 1991. Banned from staying in Saudi Arabia, he then lived in Khartoum, Sudan, from 1992 to 1996. Hassan al-Turabi, the leader of the Sudanese National Islamic Front, FNI, welcomed him there. After settling there, he made investments, built roads, exported agricultural products, purchased land, and engaged in banking business in accordance with the principles of Islamic banking. In addition, he made the decision to form an alliance with opponents of the Saudi government located in Iran and Syria. His relatives visited him in Sudan several times in 1992 and 1993. They suggested that he abandon his resistance to the royal family and return to Saudi Arabia, but to no avail. In early April 1994, Saudi Arabia deprived him of his nationality. However, he continues to maintain secret relationships with some members of the Saudi royal family. Osama bin Laden carried out a number of operations and attacks between 1993 and 1998. He was sometimes suspected and sometimes found guilty. He provided funding and weapons to the Bosnian Mujahids between 1992 and 1995 through an ostensible humanitarian organization. As early as December 1992, a group supported by bin Laden was behind an attempt against American forces in Yemen. 6 people were killed in an attack on the World Trade Center on February 26, 1993. A gang associated with Osama bin Laden is suspected. Nevertheless, bin Laden's reputation as an anti-Iranian and anti-Soviet commander is still quite favorable in Western countries. Furthermore, the Belgian police discovered documents confirming the alliance with Osama bin Laden of an armed Islamist group guilty of a campaign of attacks in France in 1995. On May 26, 1995, Al-Qaeda was suspected of having participated in an assassination attempt against Egyptian President Mohammed Hosni Mubarak, then Egyptian president. In February 1998, Osama bin Laden called for attacks on American interests around the world. He then became an official enemy of the United States, which obtained his expulsion from Sudan. He then took refuge in Afghanistan, under the control of the Taliban since 1996. The first international arrest warrant for him was obtained in mid-April 1998 at the request of the government of the Libyan Arab Jamahiriya, in response to the 1994 assassination of 2 German residents on Libyan soil. He is blamed by the United States for the August 7, 1998, bombings of the American embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, which killed 213 people, including 8 Americans, and in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, which left 11 people dead, all Tanzanians. Whenever there is hostility, bin Laden accepts the attacks but does not take credit for them. After that, in October 1998, the U.S. government put a $5 million price on his head. He was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list in June 1999. The attacks on the Pentagon and the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001, are largely attributed to Osama bin Laden. He admitted to being the catalyst for the September 11, 2001, attacks on the World Trade Center and implicitly admitted his involvement. U.S. President George W. Bush secured the establishment of an international intervention in Afghanistan with the stated aim of eliminating Al-Qaeda after the attacks of September 11, 2001, and after the government of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan refused to surrender bin Laden. Resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, associated with the stance of the European Union, have been adopted to oppose Osama bin Laden since the late 1990s and early 2000s. On December 13, 2001, the federal government of the United States boosted its reward to $25 million for information that led directly to his apprehension. The Airline Pilots Association and the Air Transport Association also jointly announced a $2 million bounty. The United States declared its desire for bin Laden to be dead or alive at that point. Despite searches that continued until January 2002, bin Laden was not found during the Battle of Tora Bora, which was a military operation that took place in December 2001 in the province of Nangarhar between the Taliban and their allies on the one hand and the Northern Alliance and NATO forces on the other. Afghan warlords are suspected of having let him escape. After his escape from Tora Bora, bin Laden managed to elude his pursuers for a decade. During this period of disappearance, he manifested itself through several sound messages in the media, threatening Western countries, in particular the United States, and calling for several attacks against Western interests, while proposing a truce in exchange for the withdrawal of American troops from Iraq and Afghanistan. He was supposed to move into a mansion in the Pakistani city of Raipur in 2004, 65 kilometers north of Islamabad. In 2005, he was to move into a villa in Abbottabad, 50 kilometers north of Islamabad. U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates said on December 6, 2009, that U.S. military officials had not had any indication of bin Laden's whereabouts for years. The information provided by a Guantanamo prisoner sets the CIA trail in motion. This is Mohammed al-Qahtani, a Saudi national captured in December 2001 during the Battle of Tora Bora and who was linked to Mohammed Atta, one of the masterminds of the September 11 attacks. According to research, he had attempted, but failed, to reach American territory prior to September 11, 2001. After being questioned in greater detail, Qahtani eventually acknowledged that a specific Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti was a messenger for Osama bin Laden after several months. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of the September 11, 2001 attacks, and an Al-Qaeda agent apprehended in 2004 cross-checked this information. The duo of detainees downplayed the significance of Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti during questioning. This particular feature leads investigators to believe that this individual was important to bin Laden. Abu Faraj al-Libi, a prominent Al-Qaeda operative who was apprehended in Pakistan in 2005, responded in a similar manner. 2010 saw the CIA finally agree to track Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti after a phone call. They arrive at the Abbottabad facility. It would have been difficult to locate bin Laden in Abbottabad without the phone call from Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. Indeed, a person can stay hidden for a very long time if they are extremely careful and do not use cell phones, satellite phones, or the internet. Bin Laden was extremely cautious about who he spoke to and avoided using technological communication tools. In August 2010, the fortified villa where bin Laden lived was discovered in Abbottabad, a location known as a leading military vacation destination in Pakistan. The main headquarters of the military academy is located 1.3 kilometers north of the residence hall. The residents of this fortified facility are then identified by U.S. authorities using satellite images. Valued at $1 million, this residence built in 2005 sits on 3,000 square meters of land and is approximately 8 times larger than any other home in the neighborhood. U.S. intelligence agents monitoring the house observed that the occupants valued at one throwing it away, as did their neighbors. The fortified house also did not have an internet or telephone connection and was surrounded by walls 4 to 6 meters high. They come to the conclusion that this house was created specifically to hide an important person. In an attempt to confirm the presence of Osama bin Laden at the residence, the CIA used a Pakistani doctor, Shakil Afridi, by staging a fake vaccination campaign in Abbottabad to obtain DNA samples, but there is no evidence that the American authorities managed to obtain them. It was in March 2011 that the American authorities began preparing the operation called Neptune Spear to eliminate Osama bin Laden. They ruled out the option of an airstrike, which would make it difficult to search for bin Laden's body, or a joint action with the Pakistanis because Inter-Services Intelligence, the Pakistani Secret Service, has links to Islamist organizations and wants to avoid information leaks. In April 2011, the decision was made to launch the operation. Geronimo is the code name for Osama bin Laden being found. The raid was carried out jointly by 23 members of the SEAL, or Navy SEALs, a special force of the United States Navy. The 23 members, placed for the occasion under the authority of the CIA, were transported by 2 Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk combat helicopters, supported by 2 Boeing CH-47 Chinook transport helicopters for support, from a secret version. Using ropes, the first SEAL assault squad must be dropped from the hovering helicopter onto the building's top. In order to protect the surrounding region, the second aircraft drops down its personnel outside the facility, towards the north. The event did not raise concerns about the operation, even if the first machine had issues that led to its crash. The crew on patrol outside drives away anyone drawn in by the accident and explosion boom. The raid takes about 40 minutes to complete. Not only did bin Laden get shot, but the operation also claimed the lives of 3 other adult males who were inside the building. According to information, these are 2 messengers from bin Laden and one of his sons, aged 24. Due to the massive amount of equipment found during the assault and crash of the Black Hawk aircraft, a backup Chinook helicopter was brought in to replace it and evacuate some SEAL members. The second Black Hawk removes the body of bin Laden and the other SEALs. A representative of the Pakistani government confirmed to Agence France-Presse that bin Laden was shot in the head during the operation, resulting in his death on May 2, 2011. Also, according to some reports, bin Laden was wounded in the head, chest, and skull above the left eye. On May 3, 2011, the day after his death, the White House spokesperson declared that bin Laden was dead. In addition to bin Laden being killed, a significant number of papers and items were removed from the heavily guarded compound where he was hiding. They obtained more information in a single operation than they would have obtained in 10 years of investigation, according to a CIA analyst. These items include computers, around 10 hard drives, and more than 100 pieces of information storage media, including USB keys and DVDs. Although the United States claimed that this was not a cooperative operation, the media, following the events and statements made by the Americans and Pakistanis following the operation, emphasized the equivocal position of Pakistan. They stressed that Osama bin Laden could not have lived in Abbottabad, a peaceful town near Pakistan's largest military academies, without the help of the IC, the country's secret service, or at least a part of them. They questioned the presence of the Al-Qaeda commander, who stayed for 5 years among a large number of senior army officials, in a place that houses an entire brigade of the Pakistani army. The judicial proceedings against bin Laden were terminated on June 17, 2011, when an American court signed a request for dismissal in response to his death. The following factors are listed in the request's appendix and provide context for the CIA's assessment that bin Laden was killed in the Abbottabad raid. Analyzing facial recognition images of the deceased with old photographs of bin Laden. Comparing DNA samples from the body with the DNA profile of bin Laden created from the DNA of several family members. Examining items in the Abbottabad compound, such as mail from bin Laden and an undisclosed video of bin Laden. And the statement of one of bin Laden's wives, who was with him there. Bin Laden's remains were loaded onto the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson, placed inside a weighted bag, and lanced off the Pakistani coast without leaving any trace of the precise location of the body to prevent the grave from becoming a sanctuary, an object of veneration.